Real Talk with Joe Skousen.
It's good to see you, Victor. As always, you guys are kind of busy, deeply involved in so many things around the space. We're busy and running around, but it's great to catch up here. There's just, I mean, so much continuing to kind of change and morph in the space. It's like tough to keep up with it all.
It is, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to divorce myself from talking about MLS policy and suing who and how legal cases are impacting the real estate industry and get back into what we really love, which is talking about how technology is such a great enabler for real estate professionals. And you
Yeah.
guys have certainly been a leader in that category, and I really appreciate all that you guys do.
Well, thanks, Victor. I was looking the other day at kind of some of the trends. I had a question come to me that was kind of like, how big is this trend compared to other technology trends? In the moment, it always seems like nothing could compare, but you remember some of the other trends that we've been through historically. I mean, you have like the historical trends of things like, what about when we went from on-prem software over to cloud software? That was like a
Sure.
major shift.
Yeah.
The difference is that thing took decades, right? That was like a decades long shift. And then you have things like the move to mobile, right? Remember how big that kind of shift is like to
That
go
shift is still happening.
that's still happening, but that was like a decade and a half long
It's
shift.
crazy.
This AI trend is so fast.
It is. And blockchain, don't forget about blockchain. I mean,
Blockchain,
my
yeah.
goodness, we spent so much time working on, and we're still spending time on blockchain. And I think, there's some new stuff coming along with regulated cryptocurrency, which is going to create some interesting opportunities that are definitely going to impact housing. I know, Grant Cardone is probably the leader in the space for fractionalized housing. He, builds these incredible funds and goes out and buys lot of real
Yeah.
estate. It's
Yeah.
like a REIT that's on the blockchain that allows anybody to buy a fraction of a piece of property, and that really opens the door for property investing to people that otherwise would never have had that opportunity. And so some cool stuff there. Like blockchain is not
Yeah,
dead.
you got like the
Certainly not
blockchain
the thing.
trends,
Yeah, I
but
know.
all of these trends, all these technology trends are kind of like you have this. It's the bell curve a little bit where it's like moving along, and all of a sudden it's a major trend. How big that major trend is,
AI is
AI's
different,
just moved
right?
so fast.
Yeah.
It's
So
so fast.
usually, I don't remember who the guys are that wrote that book, but generally, you have like early adopter, and then whatever peak adoption, then late adopters. But
Yeah, yeah.
seeing late adopters, parents of 50-year-old men using AI today, and they're using it as vigorously as a 16-year-old, so
Totally, yeah. The kind of crossing the chasm is kind of with that concept of all the tech adoption phases, and yeah, it's kind of like with AI. I think it's been 18-ish months, maybe 19-ish months, to where you've got things like now it's something like 70% of all social media images are are AI generated.
wow.
70%.
And that's going to change. Like in January, I know the state of California requires a disclaimer if you use AI. And I'd be very interested to see how brokers play whack-a-mole with
Yeah,
their agent compliance on that one,
exactly. When 70% of all the images already are AI generated, it's like you
Yeah.
need a disclaimer. Okay, just put a disclaimer on everything,
Yeah,
because
pretty much. Yeah.
almost everything has some sort of piece of AI. So how is this, you've written some articles and done some things recently. How is AI reshaping kind of brokerage strategies and
Yeah.
MLS strategies? What are you seeing out there?
Well, as a consultant, we do play the role of educator sometimes, and I think this is an area where education is really important. And we created a paradigm for real estate that we call the three pillars of AI, and it's a publication that we have. We'll be sure to link to it.
Yeah.
But it's very important for anybody in real estate to understand the differences. So tier one is the most common tier. It's your ChatGPT or your Claude or whatever you're using. And we talk about tier one as sort of that individual user, But more importantly, we talk about it as far as there's some information related to protection of your data. So if you don't have a premium account or a pro account on a lot of these services, then your interactions with the AI become part of the public record. So if I wanted to say take a document like my financial report and drop it into my ChatGPT and ask it questions and kind of use it as a business coach, and we can treat ChatGPT like be a banker at Goldman Sachs and tell
Yeah.
me,
Yeah. You tell it the role to
you just
play,
think,
and then
yeah,
you
you can
kind of
like
start interacting with
adopt
it.
any
Yeah.
persona and tell me
Yeah.
what I'm looking at here. And it's pretty cool. But now you just threw your financials out to the public. And
Right.
so you have to be careful and you have to sort of have the pro account. And then there's some limitations to it, like the number of things that you can ask each month. They call those tokens, and nobody really knows how many tokens you're using when you ask for something. It just they tell you. And
Yeah. Here's
uh,
what you used, kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And then I think you hit, some thresholds related to how much data you can put into, like how many documents or the size of files and things like that. And tier one is kind of cool, but you run out of room very, very quickly. I had a conversation with a great executive in real estate, Michael Werzer from FBS, and he says like, yeah, our Spark API, we're enabling with an MCP server, and that's going to allow people to hit the data in the MLS and the roster data, and then interrogate it for whatever you need. And he's like, the problem is you're going to run out. Like if you're pulling photos and stuff like that, like you're trying to do a CMA, you're going to eat up your tokens really, really fast. So
Fast.
can
Yeah.
AI do it? Heck yeah. But how many times is the
Yeah.
question. So
Yeah.
that's sort of tier one. Tier two is what's commonly referred to as a RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And what's really great about RAG environments is you can just think of placing an AI on top of your file server. So if you're already in Google Cloud or you're already in OneDrive, then you can absolutely go in there and put AI on top of it. One common way to do it within the Google environment is just using Notebook LM. And so
Right. Right.
we're doing a thing right now called Ask Mike. Mike is the name of a broker. He's a big broker. And we're doing this thing for him right now where he's taking all of the state of California licensing stuff and laws and MLS rules, association rules, all those
And
types.
making them super, super like accessible all of a
Yeah,
sudden. Where
put
yeah,
him in the rack. Yeah.
yeah, agentic interface, and really a lot of this kind of level two or phase two or whatever of usage. That's where you've seen a lot of these early kind of new businesses, new AI businesses pop up, right? Because everyone was like, hey, look, you can start to like layer this thing on top, and that has been fairly game changing for a lot of processes, even that level, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we've seen, a lot of MLSs, I think they're partnering with companies like Arty and others to kind of do the
Yeah.
same thing. So like when you think about help desk or you think about chat or FAQs or anything like that, you're generally dealing with sort of static data, right?
Right. Right.
And mostly in documents. And if you work with a company like WAV Group or you work with people who know, there's a way to structure that data. Like you don't put a PDF in there, you change it to a markdown. You
Right. Right.
you don't put an Excel file in there, you change it to a CSV. So what those types of things allow machines to read more clearly and
To really get access to it
yeah, yeah.
easier and
And
then so
less
you
expensive too, because again, you get back to the
so
tokens. So it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you don't organize your data correctly within this environment, then you pay a lot more. You can pay 2 to 3 or 4 times more for each query that or each prompt that you're answering. And that's pretty important. And another thing we're doing to optimize that stuff, and everybody does it really, that's running a RAG, is prompt libraries. So one of the things is if I call it the problem of cursor. So
Yeah.
the problem of the cursor is you don't exactly know how somebody's going to structure a prompt. And early on in AI we talked about prompt engineering, and there's
Right. Right.
need a new job. I still haven't seen anybody that gets a job for prompt engineering, but this is the new career
Yeah.
path, and it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
really happen. But when you know that, obviously in a data environment, if somebody's asking questions or putting things into a prompt, you can see them, and then you can look at the quality of the prompt and get feedback on it, thumb up, thumb down. And then you can kind of structure that and say, well, let's take, the top 25 or 50 most commonly asked questions or prompts, and let's create a prompt library. Just press a button.
Yeah.
And we've engineered that to give you the best possible response most reliably. So that's
Well,
tier two.
and
That's
again, Victor, what one of the things I'd highlight here is, and hopefully I think you're laying it out in a really good way, and hopefully folks can kind of understand a little bit some of the trend they're seeing. One of the things I would call out and just reemphasize is many of the tools, many of the AI solutions that you're seeing out there are really level one to level two here,
yes.
right? They're
Yeah.
level one to level two, and they're fantastic. And the other thing I'd call out is we're not. This isn't a world where we're like, hey, level one's now out of date and we're forgetting about it, or level two.
Uh,
It's building on top, right? And so it's kind of
yes.
like, okay, many of the solutions, and I won't name a lot of names, but I would just say whether we're talking about industry specific solutions or even broad market solutions, a
Mhm.
lot of these solutions out there that are like, hey, go use an agentic chat experience and go create a website or create a media document or something. They're really accomplished with a series of prompts behind the scenes so that
Mhm.
when you put your prompt in the chat, it pairs it with a back end prompt that's like, hey, do it this way. And all of a sudden people are like, wow, this is really cool, right? That's still all kind of level two for the most part.
All of it's level two,
Yeah.
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 So it just I think of level two as static. Like
Yeah.
it's working in a cloud infrastructure in that it's living in your Google Drive or it's living in your OneDrive. You can do a RAG, and like there's a really popular platform called N8N, which is a server side RAG environment that works
Yep.
pretty good, but it also escalates up to this level three area. And
Yeah.
this
So
is
let's
really
talk
for
level three.
enterprise.
What
Yeah,
is
yeah,
level
yeah.
three?
So
What
level
is level
three,
three?
I
Yeah.
know. Well, first of all, RAG is not like a lot of people you talk about a RAG and they're like, well, what? Retrieval
Yeah.
augmented time. But now we're going to introduce a brand new term, MCP server, which is Model Context Protocol.
Right.
So this is, you can think of like, sure, you were in the cloud at level two, but now you're in a server environment. Okay. So this is enterprise server. It's going to be at Azure or AWS or, Google Cloud. Like it's going to be on server hardware, like really big stuff. And it has some advantages. So obviously the size of data repository that you can create is unlimited, expandable. You're not going to get into, response issues. So
Yeah.
if you have a bunch of concurrent users hitting the
Scale
edge
that you can handle.
of
Yep.
that, right?
Yep.
It's optimized. So like server environments for storing data today that work off of traditional architecture are not created correctly for AI. So if you try to run AI like on your IDX server today, it's going to puke. You have to do it in what's called a vectorized environment. Like, so you're changing the data. All the software on the server and everything is different. Um, the other cool thing about an MCP environment is that it will connect to live data. So it can connect to the MLS. I could connect to like my customer record inside a BoldTrail, or I could
Yeah.
connect to any kind of the Zapier type of
Yeah.
connections. I
Yeah.
can make those connections. So I can connect to data sets. So this is really important for brokerages, especially those who have like mortgage, title, insurance, new home, commercial, plus residential, plus they have
Yeah.
all these different business units, and right now all their data is sort of locked into these vaults and stored and organized very differently and not set up for AI at all. So we can connect to those now and conform and contort the data for the first time, where system integration across all your businesses is really fluid. The second thing about an MCP server is that it will do things. Now, when we published our paper originally, ChatGPT did not have some of the components that actually do stuff. Like
Right.
right now, they just released like a few weeks ago something called operator and something called agent. So it'll actually pretend like it's a human and go log into software and do things. But that's not what we're talking about at the MCP server. We're really talking about the ability to connect to services like your Gmail and send an email, if that's what is required. So the MCP server is really for advanced large firms and for companies like yours, businesses that where you want to provide very novel and fluid, technology solutions to your agents that frankly the hard coded systems that you have today can't do.
Well, and yeah, I love it. And one of the ways I like to think about the MCP kind of architecture and service is if right now for me, when I'm breaking AI down and kind of the phases of AI, I think about it like businesses. Pretend when we talk about AI, you're talking about a business. Level one business is kind of like you're an individual operator, right? And you're like out doing your thing, and you've got one individual operator. That was kind of like level one. Is you got this little smart little agent, this smart little operator, and they're kind of pretty efficient and pretty good, and they're out collecting data for you and doing those sorts of things.
No code, no
Yep.
engineering,
Yeah, no,
no
exactly.
technical experience required,
Level,
right?
exactly. And level two, you kind of start to scale that out a little bit with level two, and you kind of are starting to have more specialized roles in level two. What's interesting about the
That's where
MCP,
you probably are. You would at level two, you will probably benefit from having an IT person in your company.
right? But as you
Like
think
not a
about,
coder necessarily, but somebody, like somebody who just is really into tech.
right, and you got to get this environment.
Yeah.
Level three, it's almost like a little company of AI,
Now you're talking
right?
about
And
engineers,
so,
right? People who log into servers, people who understand security. Yeah, as a
yeah, and
whole.
what, and so what you can kind of think about is an MCP server is almost like a whole set of AIs working together,
For
right?
sure.
Is kind of
Yeah.
how to think about MCP,
Yep.
where you might have an agent that's interacting with your server and connecting different modules within your server, different data. And so one of the good examples of it, so a while back we started kind of building out the MCP architecture at Inside Real Estate, both for us, but also because our belief is that honestly, every MLS out there, every large brand and brokerage out there is going to need to have an MCP kind of architecture for
Faster rather
themselves
than yeah, like more quickly than you might imagine, actually. Yeah.
sooner rather than later. That's right.
Very fast.
And
Yeah.
and so, as we did that, some of the use cases is we said, look, um, at Inside Real Estate, people maybe historically have thought about us as kind of like, hey, that's the place where I go get my BoldTrail CRM solution, right, or whatever. The way it kind of looks in the future is we're like, yes, you may use that or you may use something else, but really, Victor, as we kind of think about this MCP world, what we would say is we can, whoa, look at that. Wow.
It's all you, bro.
Ah. Um, you gotta love the meetings these days.
I know.
But as you start to think about those, what you start to see is this need to come in and be able to say, hey, I want to take the API docs for BoldTrail, and I want to take the API docs for this other solution. I want to load them up to
Mhm.
my little integrator bot, and it will actually generate the integration for me.
Right.
And that's the types of things we're doing now. Is we're
That
saying rather than an engineer have to go take the API docs, work on it for 6 months, and generate an integration, we can load that up, and our our
tomorrow.
our architecture now connects those for you. And then what about when people change their API endpoints? Because those are still things. You still got to have API endpoints.
Just reads the
Then
metadata.
it can read that and connect them for you. What
Exactly.
happens when the MLS needs to update a field? Because we will never be in a place where we don't update fields. All of a sudden, those things can almost like be living and
Right.
updating in real time. And so the MCP architecture does that sort of thing. It also, you describe data, and for a broker, a large broker or a brand or an MLS these days, it's about how do you have this super highway of data coming back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And not be dependent on one of my integrators over there, one of my integrators over here, but it acts truly like a super highway as fast as we need it to. Those are the types of things where this MCP architecture really comes into play. But MCP architecture, kind of like any other software thing out there, someone could say, "Hey, I've got my MCP architecture." There's like these days more than ever, how robust, how well built, how well structured is that really? or is it just, are you just trying to check a box, right? And so that's really, I think, this almost like platform beneath the platform play. That's where I think this comes over the next little while.
Yeah, I see, and I'm just going to pick a number, maybe the top 100 firms by the end of 2026 are all going to have MCP architectures.
Yep. Yep.
The first company to even release anything as it relates to enterprise AI was Compass gave a demo this year at their summer business meetings, and they said, we'll have this up in the fall. And it's a telling situation. I mean, Compass has invested billions in the development of their own tech, and they certainly have, high quality engineering and developers and architects, all of that, including Ori Allen, who's one of the founders of Twitter. Like, he's Robert's partner. He knows exactly what's going on. But their stuff wasn't built for MCP. It wasn't built for AI. They're going over the rainbow just like everybody else. So that's
Totally.
the good news, is it kind of flattened the playing field. But I think the first companies that really get to it at scale are going to be the ones that see the most amount of gains. I one of the things I try to explain is that generally, like in before AI, the way software was developed was you had a database, you had an application, and you had the front end. So the application layer would kind of look at the front end and what the user's doing and clicking. It would think about that, and then it would go grab the data from the database, process it, and then push it back, right? So it was just sort of, now you have AI in the middle. So the application layer is really AI, and we talk about like low code or no code AI, meaning that the user just uses a prompt. So that's the new user interface.
Yep.
The application layer is the AI, which is sentient,
Yep.
generative AI, like it
Yep.
understands what you're saying, and then it goes to the database. So what's really so important there is the database and having it clean, having it like it's like that is that's the pinch point. If your database isn't solid, nothing else is going to work.
So Victor, there's this other side of these phases of AI, the realities of kind of what's going on. One of the things that the real estate industry has struggled with, and particularly I would say kind of real estate brands, brokers, teams, agents, the MLSs, we'll get a new technology. And
Mhm.
and the technology train has not stopped over the last decades, right? I mean, it's an ongoing train. Everyone's like, where's the end of this thing? It's not ending, it's
It doesn't
continuing,
end.
right?
Yeah.
And yet, um, again, this AI trend overall is moving so fast. These phases are moving very fast. And I dare say that it's even harder for many of the practitioners in the space to really understand what all of this means for their next moves, right? Not
Yeah.
everybody I agree with you. Compass and many others are kind of like, okay, now we're at the next phase of
They're
like,
baby steps. Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like levels the playing field again. So a big part of this really is not just, do I get my agent going, my AI agent going? Do I get my MCP server going? Do I Yes, everyone can check the box somehow. The question is, can I structure it right? Can I get this thing done right so
Mhm.
that I'm not constantly playing catch up over the next 2 5 years, but I'm starting to get ahead and outpace. And so it's really about getting this stuff done right and understanding it. And so you're doing a lot. We're
Mhm.
doing a lot. You started with this of education.
Yeah,
Of
people need to know like what we're and so we look at the business case or the business use case, and
Yep.
I'll use a great example. So um, can AI build a CMA, a custom CMA that takes the input from the real estate agent and produces an outcome that's as far better than existing software that builds a CMA? I know yours is great. There's a lot of great ones out there, but there's some limitations to existing CMA
Totally.
software. So, like the template, the way you query the data, the structure of it, the way it outputs to a report, all of those things are pretty rigid.
Totally.
But with AI, it's boundless. So you have so much more freedom and flexibility. But here's the thing. to do a CMA with AI where you're processing that much data, that many large images and things like that is very expensive. Like you could easily spend five, six, $10 with each draft of your CMA. If it's,
And
if
if
you don't know what you're
and
doing.
if your prompt or what you ask isn't right,
Yeah,
then you're in three, four, five drafts of it. That
you're
right?
sucking up tokens.
That's
Just
right.
so do I think that AI will replace the CMA and software today? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen right away? No. Market reports are another great example. So right now, the way in which a market report is constructed is fairly static in terms of like how it presents the information, the flexibility, even with a custom reporting tool. It's, it has some boundaries that are really hard to replace and can't be really replaced efficiently. But I mean, charts and graphs where I'm not pulling all the image and all that stuff, well, market reports, boom. So, like Zillow, I think, has the industry lead right now on market reports is because they acquired Showing Time. So Showing Time market reports, they rolled up a whole bunch of companies into that, and they do a lot of that business. And but you don't need that. Like you don't need market reports. I know there are a lot of companies right now who have recruiting software. So go interrogate the MLS and tell me which agents meet this criteria for me to recruit and to focus on. Those systems probably go away, you
And
know?
that's I think what a lot of people are seeing right now is they're kind of like, man, you can as you start to understand it, you're like, man, how much goes away? I think the point that you were making a second ago is a very good point, and one of the key points. If I'm a broker brand, MLS is kind of like you can envision all of this.
Mhm.
The harshest reality now at this point, or a couple of realities, is less about can you envision a website being created by Lovable or some other solution out there? Yes, of course. Can that can you accomplish the goal of your website with that, and or the goal of your CMA at the right cost and without a human still having to spend a lot of time iterating, is where that's where the question is. And so for
Starts with your data, right?
yeah, it starts with your data, and there's actually a lot of tooling and solutioning around like the raw capabilities of AI and my outcomes still. Like that's that gap between the raw capabilities and the outcome I'm trying to get is there's a lot of dollars and a lot of hours that can be spent trying to get it there, right? And so really what as you think about this over the next while, when you say, okay, so what about all this? So we've got these kind of phases and chapters. So what if I'm a brand? So what if I'm an MLS? I think what it means is you need some good kind of advice. Victor does a great job. You got some others. And what I would say is you need some kind of partnership in thinking. The
Yeah.
other thing that we see is you need really great clarity on the outcome you're trying to accomplish from the outset. You can't
Yeah.
wander in and say, I just need AI. I just need AI for this. You need really great clarity on your outcomes. And so, whether it's, we're launching this home search AI solution right now that really is all about conversations. It's about how your clients engage with search to drive conversations more than it is just about how cool AI search is, right? But you really have to get super specific. And if you understand your outcomes really well, AI can help you get there really fast. If you don't have that tight clarity and you're just trying to stay on the bandwagon, you can likely spend a lot of dollars and a lot of time chasing the AI vision right now because everyone's coming with something, right?
Well, I always quote you on a classic saying, which I'll carry with me till I die, which is, "What do you have more of, time or money?"
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly, exactly,
and
exactly.
so if you have money, then you can deploy AI to do a lot of the things that you frankly don't want to do. If you have a lot of time, then you should just do it yourself. And I'll use, like AI is better at having a conversation today with an online lead than humans are.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you guys have demonstrated this throughout the BoldTrail platform that, the ability of AI to anticipate the consumer need or to answer a lot of the questions that can be answered simply and effectively and accurately off the data.
A portion of the conversation, a portion
Yeah,
of the
yeah. Well,
conversation,
there's,
right? Yeah,
like, oh, well, you can, that's the great thing about technology is technology can monitor the conversation and say, I know when I need to get a human in the middle, and I can get that human in the middle and get them caught
right,
up really fast. In
right.
fact, I can give, like, you don't have to go read a 17-page summary of how this person's been searching over the last 350 days, which I think is the incubation period for an online lead. You just like AI will give you that summary. So now you start the conversation with Joe as though you've been the person there talking to them all along, and you know about everything that they've written. These are the key points that you need to
Yeah.
know about this home buyer and what they're looking for and where they were shopping. How long have they been shopping? What's changed? Is there a co-buyer? Are they sharing this thing with their, like, all of that stuff? We can scoop all that, summarize it, and bring the agent up to speed right away so they can answer the tough questions.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so if I'm gonna go to as we wrap up here. We could jam all day. I mean, we could spend the entire. But what I would say is, if I'm a large brand or
Yep.
brokerage right now,
Large.
you
Yeah.
interact with those. I interact with those folks. The ones who I would say are moving the quickest and making the most progress are doing a couple of things. One, they are super clear about which needle they are trying to move today, and
Mhm.
they're super clear, super specific, right? They're not trying to move every needle at once.
Mm-mm.
They're in there saying, I need to go move this needle today, and they're clear and specific about
So
it.
we talk about this very, very, very intensely with our brokerage customers, and we're dealing with, with customers doing, tens of billions and above.
Right,
That
right.
like that's our sweet spot as a
Yep.
consulting firm. So, um, we break the conversation into, is this something that's going to create efficiency for the brokerage? In other words, how do we 10x our workforce? So if you have 100 or more employees as a brokerage, you want to optimize that workforce in the best possible way. So
Yep.
you might look at things that are highly intensive in terms of labor, like agent onboarding, like compliance on documents, like financial reporting. These take a lot of humans, highly skilled humans, and these jobs can be supported very well with AI to multiply, a force multiplier of their staff. So we look at those. And then the second thing is we look at automation for agents. What things are going to create the most lift for an agent that informs recruiting and retention? Because the real estate broker's customer is ultimately the consumer, but it's through the vehicle is the agent. So if I'm recruiting or retaining agents, I need to demonstrate to them that I'm providing process solutions that make their life easier. And for the first time, a broker can do that in a way that the agent or team can't go buy it on their own.
And I agree.
That's huge.
That is huge. And so these clear specific outcomes, I think part of what you're describing too, I would call you while I don't believe that AI takes the place of a real estate agent. I don't
Oh,
think real estate agents go away. I don't think any of us do. However, certain roles and functions of the real estate agent or the transaction coordinator or the staff person, certain roles and functions absolutely should go away,
yeah, where
right?
you have more than one person doing something. Well, there's two things. So if you only have one, you're at risk of losing that one person, which can be very disruptive to your operation. So you need an AI backup. And
Yep,
like when we think about like even level two or level three, when we think about AIs, I don't think of AI as a thing. Like in our schema, we would have a financial assistant, a marketing assistant, and you
totally,
go through and we
totally,
create custom AIs to do a specific job. And
exactly,
when you select
exactly.
that AI, you get that prop library of these are the jobs that are most commonly requested. So they're a button push away. It happens.
That's it. That's how you professionalize your business in the space to a
Exactly.
level you haven't had before, right? So some of the examples we have today is some of the areas we have focused, right? We've said things like one of the functions that an agent runs. Nobody even talks about this function really, but if you have a really good agent or a really good team, do you know one of the functions that consumes a ton of time? Scanning their emails and taking action on an email.
Mhm.
That takes hours a day. And people don't even talk about that role because we all just assume we've had email now forever. And so, when we talk about some of our folio solutions or some of those things, its primary job is scanning your email, watching all of those indicators, stopping things from falling through the gaps, turning those into opportunities in your CRM, updating the contact record, doing all those things and taking the first automations for you. That function, it's funny, but that is the most common function in real estate, and it consumes hours of every real estate agent and team every single day. And
Mhm.
so that's an example of, hey, I didn't remove the agent. I just removed that function or role so that I don't have to go freaking live in my email inbox, scanning things and hand entering them into some other thing. It's like that. So clarity around these specific functions and roles is kind of key, making sure that you go and eliminate that. I'll tell you the third thing we're seeing with these large brokerages, even sometimes when they roll out a great AI solution, it's still, when you're talking about bringing it down to the agent and team level, you have to have a level of ground game and training. You
Mhm.
gotta you gotta figure out how to that's always been a challenge in the space. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we're working with folks on, and we've really actually staffed up a team here to do, is run that ground game in partnership with you, right? Because that ground game can be tough. And if you've got thousands of agents, thousands of MLS members, how do you actually effectively run that ground game to help people adopt? Because they're only going to be as effective as they know how to use those AI tools, right? And so
Yeah.
that's really
I
a
use
big part of
this.
where we've been focused too.
I know that you know our mutual friend Rajiv Siva, who works at Home Services of
Yep.
America under
Yep.
the Fox and Roach brand. And, he has, he's an industry leader at that ground game. And he's not only having a force multiplier impact on all of their agents, but he's really like impacting all of home services.
Yeah.
And it's really, he's sort of an evangelist and a trainer and a knowledge source. And yeah, that's super important. Like just having it without having the support and the background on it is useless because
Yeah.
again, you get to that cursor problem where people is like, okay, I have AI. Now what do I do with it?
Oh,
Like,
100%, 100%. So
but
it's kind of like focus on, make sure you got clarity of the outcome, make sure you focus on a role or a function that is meaningful to actually eliminate that entire role and function. Don't just make life a little easier, eliminate a role or function that is helpful to everybody. And then you got to use the ground game and actually get it out to the people. When you do, you start to see these big organizations completely change how they work. The
Mhm.
outcomes step function shift. We're seeing areas where we're getting twice as high efficiency, three times. We've got one spot where they're closing six times as many of their leads as they were previously because of applying these, six times as many of
Yeah.
their leads,
No, I mean, yeah, your company has, been at the forefront of lead capture and lead conversion. I mean, since you started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what terrifies me the most is you have decision makers, whether they be agents, team leaders, or brokers, going out and making decisions about point solutions in AI, and they're the wrong choices. You
Yeah.
can spend a ton of money on what looks like a shiny object today, which I think you should talk to a bunch of people about before you buy it because it's probably stuff that you can have on your own without paying somebody a markup fee to have.
Your tech partners and consulting partners are probably
Yes.
more important now than they've ever been. I will also say it's the most exciting time in the industry. And we've been saying that over the past few years. There's been a lot of exciting things. It's not for kind of the tepid kind of tiptoeing through the space. This is a time for kind of forward movement, leaning in, and but very exciting. I think we're going to continue to see more innovation, more client consumer centric solutions, more professionalized brokerages, brands, MLSs, and more collaboration than we've seen across the past
And
decades.
more customization.
More customization, more
I think
tailored experiences.
that's
Yeah.
really where, just granular customization.
Yeah.
That is, that is probably going to be the most impressive thing. Like
Yeah.
I can do a social graph to my customer, and all of my communications with that customer can match that social graph. So I meet them right where they are in whatever
Yeah.
language they want. Right. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So good to talk to you, dude.
Good to
This
see
is
you,
great.
Victor, as always. A pleasure. All
All
right.
right. We'll
See
see
ya.
you.